Hello and welcome to LSTV's weekly news programme, The Essential. I'm Marina, André.
And I'm Peter Gollagher. Coming up on today's programme is the latest news from around your union, university and the City of Leeds.
The headlines this Wednesday.
Student newspaper, Leeds Student, says it won't be going to print after Easter due to funding, whilst the union assures there is no danger. We'll have a special interview with LS's editor and LUU's activity officer.
We interview the newly elected Student Exec following the leadership race results last Friday.
And reports of a marking boycott by lecturers have led students to worry about final grades and graduation.
First, it's been a hot topic on campus and on social media, but following the Leeds Student's front page last week, it says it still won't go to print after Easter. The student newspaper is in what it's calling a funding crisis. Leeds University Union is responsible for LS's funding and maintains that the paper's future is not in danger. Andy Seddon has a special interview with both sides.
A year's worth of reporting, exposé and hard-hitting headlines, in-depth analysis, exclusive interviews and most importantly, student press that holds the union and university to account. Thousands of students pick up Leeds' free student newspaper on campus every week. Famous for its attention-grabbing headlines, this week's was certainly no different. 1,000 less students would have had the opportunity to read the latest edition though, due to Leeds Student cutting the number of printed copies. It says it was forced to do so because financial backing provided by the union had run dry, and it says that's just the start.
This is it, the edition that Leeds Student or LS say will be its final farewell. You'd be forgiven for thinking long-term here, as many have, but to put things in context, it's largely the final two editions of the year that LS is struggling to fund. It says it's had to dip into a secondary account, usually reserved for paying for equipment and members' travel, not for printing.
It's happened because a slight increase in printing costs of LS this year has meant more money needed to be made through advertising, a job of the union.
The average running cost of LS is estimated to be about 40,000 for the year. At the start of the year, LS sat down with various people in the union, marketing activities, and the change that was being made to the LSI magazine to make it smaller was discussed, as it will increase the cost of the print run. The marketing department for Leeds University Union have worked very, very hard to match the amount of sponsorship we gained last year for last year's worth of print runs, but have not been able to exceed that.
For decades, LS has been the voice of students around Leeds and on campus. To do this, of course, it must be independent, yet without essential funding from the union, it simply wouldn't exist. LUU is responsible for finding all advertising for the paper, and at the moment LS has little say over finding sponsors itself.
Once we came to terms with the situation that we were in the final days before we printed this front page, we kind of mobilised the team of volunteers that we have here to try and bring in as much advertising as we could. We managed to get 6 offers of adverts in the last few days, which kind of says a lot when we were getting about 1 a week before that. Some of these conflicted with the union's marketing policy. So because technically we are the union's newspaper to a certain extent, the union has control over what we can and can't advertise. So anything that is deemed to be competition with services that the union already offers, for example the terrace, the old bar, fruity, can't go in the paper, which limits us quite severely in terms of what we can and can't do to fund ourselves.
It's an issue that may go beyond the immediate problem of not being able to print 2 editions.
Do you think into the future, as activities officer and kind of representing them, they should be allowed to seek out funding sources independently?
That's definitely one of the conversations to have moving forward, is about the advertising policy and how it relates to all media societies, really, not just LS. What can be looked at is this whole issue about conflict of interest with our own commercial bars and venues. I think we're very comfortable as a union that our commercial bars and venues are very, very strong, have a very good reputation, and I think that's the clause that we will be looking at moving forward. That's something that I personally would like to look at over the coming couple of months.
At the end of it all, and in a temporarily quite empty Leeds Student office, there are some summaries to make. LS is lacking funding. It's an ongoing problem. But in the short term, it says it won't be able to print its 2 final issues of the year. The unions say they'll make it happen. So the final question to LS then, as many on social media have suggested, was it all just front page hype?
As it stands, it's still accurate. You know, if you wanted to go into more detail, it would be funding crisis puts LS into its overdraft and directly affects students, but that doesn't make for a very catchy headline. But yes, I mean, until we are out of this overdraft, I am not willing to continue printing. Even if the money for the final issue is covered, I'm not happy to do that because I think time would be better spent trying to get us out of the overdraft so that the next team can function as well as possible.
Funding shortfalls aren't a new thing for LS, and with over a month over Easter before the would-be printing of the next issue, Her's hoping there's more between these two offices than just a solid brick wall. André Seddon, The Essential.
Following the interview, LS wanted to add that it's still concerned about the long-term funding of the paper into next year, and that it was told its extra £200 per week for LSI would be manageable before committing to it. The unions still say there is no danger to LS.
The LUU leadership race ended last week and the new Student Exec for next academic year has been named. But what big plans do they hope to set in place once officially in the position? Marina André reports.
The 2014 LUU leadership race results were announced last Friday, after a total of 10,250 votes. But will the 6 new Student Exec live up to their manifesto pledges? And what are they hoping to achieve during the next academic year? The first position to be announced was for the position of Equality and Diversity Officer.
And your winner and your next Equality and Diversity Officer is Jennifer.
One thing I want to work on is employability workshops. Because I think that, you know, if you are an underrepresented student, it's hard to get interviews, get things like that. So if we work on public speaking, confidence skills, not to be patronising, just I think everyone could benefit from things like that. So that's one thing I really want to do. And accessibility, well, some of the lifts like near Essentials are just really dark and dingy, and everybody should be treated the same, and I think it's about time that it should start, you know, looking like everywhere else in the union as well. So.
Next, the results for the role of Welfare Officer.
Welfare Officer is Freya Gollagher.
Yeah, so I'd really want to make an academic stress support group. That's something I think is a really crucial idea to support students. Yeah, I think improving the service of the night bus is really important as well for getting students home safe. And there's things on my manifesto, there are things that weren't on my manifesto because I didn't have space to say everything I wanted to do. But there are things like creating more safe spaces in the city, which is already looking promising. So yeah, it's just things like that really.
Now for the elected Community Officer.
Your winner and next Community Officer is George Bradley.
I think the main one's got to be Rate Your Landlord. Of all the students I've spoken to through this whole process, it's definitely the idea, the policy that so many students have just agreed on, and it's in everybody's interest to know who they're dealing with. You know, all the first year I've spoken to, they're all moving into Hyde Park or Headingley, whatever, and they have no idea what to expect. And you don't want to see students have to go through horror stories, so that's really the priority for me, I think.
Moving on, the role of Education Officer.
Next Education Officer is Tom Dixon.
The two that we really ran on were clashing deadlines and the modular enrolment system. It's been proven already that the modular enrolment system can be staggered because history are having a staggered enrolment day this year. So we think that by this time next year we could implement a system where we stagger enrolment by faculty. Clashing deadlines is again something which is not as easy to solve, but still a question I think that's worth asking and a problem worth solving. So we're going to spend the year looking at that whether or not it staggers it over the 3 weeks, over the midterms. Again, there are solutions there to be investigated, but I think that's probably what I'll spend most of my year looking at.
Then the role of Activities Officer was announced.
And the new Activities Officer for Leeds University Union is...
I think my main thing is to create this fundraising league, which I know that lots of other university unions do across the country. So I create a fundraising target for each society and then sort of create a package of how they can go about doing this, different events they could put on, and then basically whoever is sort of at the top of the table will win like some sort of a prize and incentive to try and get up there, and then that money will then be reinvested back into the societies and then also towards a charity, which will either be a charity of their choice if there's one close to their heart, or something maybe like the RAG Community Fund.
Lastly, the position of Union Affairs Officer.
Winner and next Union Affairs Officer is...
I'd say the investment in the building is probably the biggest one. Getting the university to endorse that and go forward with that and actually get the ball rolling so projects start changing, whether that's the performance spaces or the kind of society retail spaces we see inside the union as well. I think the digital communications is something that we're already starting to develop a lot. We're hiring tuner roles at the moment, so it's definitely going to be something that flourishes over summer and should land in September. And then representation is quite an important thing that we do, but also something that's quite easy to change as well. So seeing new staff roles there, but also more engagement with students, whether you're international or postgrad, I think is something that we can improve.
Training begins next week, and this induction period will be ongoing for the next few months as the handover progresses from the old to the new student exec. Now, the current exec will continue to face many challenges and opportunities to represent students. But come September, you'll be seeing a brand new group of elected student representatives around your union. Marina, André, The Essential. In other news, a teaching union boycott on marking is scheduled to take place from 28th of April. The University and College Union is preparing for another set of industrial action following their 24-hour walkout in February and their most concerted campaign to date. The reason behind the refusal to mark papers next month, according to the union, is a recent pay rise to the Vice-Chancellor, a significantly larger sum than the 1% being received by the majority of university staff, they say.
Leeds University Union is celebrating International Women's Week on campus. Since Monday, the union has been celebrating the economic, social and political achievements of women across the globe. The White Ribbon campaign against violence to women has also been gaining pledges during the course of the week, with over 300 signatures already. Talks, debates and workshops will be ongoing until Friday, as well as film screenings, fashion shows and cake sales. More information to do with the campaign can be found on the union's website.
Now for the essential question, and the council has pledged to act as payday loans have reached record levels, but have students had to deal with taking out loans or overdrafts to pay their way? Johnny Masters investigates.
With the news that payday loans have hit an all-time high of 80%, we go around the union today to find out how it's affecting you, the student. Have you ever taken out a payday loan before?
No.
Would you ever consider taking one out?
Maybe if I was like really stretched, but I'm kind of wary about them just because I've heard so many bad press and like the high interest rates and things, so yeah.
Payday loans, a big issue today. Has it affected you at all?
Not yet, because I don't actually have a payday.
Payday. Would you consider taking out a payday loan?
I would probably avoid it, considering they got something like 300% interest. It doesn't look like, when a number is that high, it's never good.
Not in a million years. I try and look at every single other avenue before I even went there. One of my friends took one out for a jerk and it ended very, very badly.
Oh, how so?
Well, basically, he forgot to pay it, decided it would be a really good idea when he was drunk, and the interest soared, and now he's in a lot of debt.
No.
Why?
Because the interest rates are stupidly high, and it seems to just get you into more trouble than you started with.
No, and I would never ever consider it.
Why?
because as a student, although we're, you know, some students are quite ridiculous with money, there's just no point because, you know, once you reach a certain limit, I think your parents have got to help you.
I think I'd be very careful before taking it out. I'd really analyse it.
Do you think that Leeds City Council are doing the right thing by getting involved?
Oh yeah, of course, because like, you know, they've got to start. Do you mean as in like getting involved with payday loans?
As in helping people sort them out, dealing with the issue?
Well, yeah, of course, because like, you know, as students, you know, we need someone there who isn't just our parents, because you know, they probably get bored of like, you know, helping us all the time. So if the council are doing it, then, you know, it's going to help not only us but like the whole community.
It would appear that payday loans are perceived as a bad thing amongst the student community, but as always, we want to hear from you. Hit us up on the Twitter page at LSTV Essential and let us know. Now back to the studio.
And finally, weather-wise, it's been a crazy week so far, but what does the outlook for the rest of the week look like? Marina André has the latest update for you.
This week's weather has been very unusual, with a very bright start to Monday, but unfortunately some very grey skies on Tuesday and lots of rain there. But today we're looking pretty settled, with highs of 7 and lows of 3, just a cloudy day. And on Thursday, tomorrow, we have highs of 8, lows of 4, but plenty of rain on the way. Moving on to Friday, we have highs of 9 and lows of 5, again a bit of rain. But onto the weekend, we should be looking ahead towards the spring, with highs of 12 and lows of 6.
That's just about it for this week's Essential. Whether you've got a news story for us or just want to watch back past reports and editions of The Essential, head over to lstv.co.uk/news.
And you can tweet us too, at LSTV Essential. But for now, remember, if it's going on
in
or around your union, it's essential.